Good day, pre-algebra. We are continuing on with CO2, which is taking these rational numbers. Remember, rational numbers, we learned about those in CO1. They are numbers that can be written as a fraction or a decimal that either ends or repeats. So today, we're going to be taking these rational numbers and writing them as their different forms, okay? There are certain times when decimals are just more appropriate than fractions. For example, if you see a price, that's something that's $2.75, you're not going to see that as 11/4 dollars. They're the same thing. Okay? Sometimes things are more written as fractions, more appropriate than decimals. Those that bake, if you've seen a recipe needing 3/8 a cup of sugar, typically it's going to be as a fraction and not as a decimal, right? So being able to convert between one or the other is an important skill, and that's what we're practicing today, okay? What does it mean to convert something? Yeah.
Change it from maybe like a decimal to a fraction or like a fraction.
Basically, to write a value in a different doesn't start with an F. There we go. Difference form. Okay, either from a decimal to a fraction or a fraction to a decimal or whatever. I think when I'm done with teaching, I want to open a store and have all my prices be fractions. 11/4 dollars, please.
That would drive me insane.
But you gotta be smart to shop there. You gotta know what's going on. You gotta understand CO2. Okay. So we're going to start converting integers to fractions and decimals. And we're starting here because it's a pretty straightforward one. Remember, an integer is something that's not a fraction or a decimal, such as 9. But if we wanted to write 9 as a fraction, how do you take any integer and write it as a fraction? How do you turn a non-fraction into a fraction? Anyone know? James?
9 ones?
Yeah, you put it over 1, right? Because what do we have here? It's not written as a fraction because it's 9 wholes. But if we wanted to represent it as 9 wholes as a fraction, we put it over 1. Okay? And what operation does that fraction bar represent anyway? Division. What's 9 divided by 1? 9, right? So we don't have to write it over 1. We just leave it as 9. But if we wanted to, that's how we would do it. How about a decimal? 9 as a decimal.
Wait.
Yeah.
9.0.
Yes. 9.0, right? We have 9 wholes and no parts. 9.0. We don't write 9.0 typically because it's the same thing as just 9. Okay, but if you wanted to represent it as a decimal, you could. Yeah.
I thought it'd be like 0.09.
So 0.09 would mean you have 0 wholes, 0 tenths, and 9 hundredths. Right? This would be like having 9 whole dollars. That's having 9 pennies. Very, very different things. Okay? Yeah, so just the number 9 by itself, 9 wholes, 9.0. Yes.
So would it be 0.9?
No, 0.9 would be 0 wholes and 9 tenths, right? If you've got 9 of something, you have 9 whole things. You want that 9 to be in the ones or the whole spot, right? 9 wholes and no parts, okay? So even if the number is negative, nothing really changes. Let's go negative 21. What is negative 21 written as a fraction?
21.
Sorry?
21.
It'd be over, but it would be negative 21 over 1, right? Because negative 21 divided by 1 is still negative 21. And as a decimal, negative 21, Ziki? Negative 21.0. Yep. Don't lose that sign there, right? Negative 21.0. So with integers, just to sum up, a fraction since it's not written as a fraction to start with, just put it over 1. And as a decimal, it's not written as a decimal to start with, 0.0. Okay? Question on that before we move on. All right, because now things start getting fun. Okay? Where we're going from a fraction to a decimal, or a decimal to a fraction. Let's take the fraction 3/5. Okay? We want to write this as a decimal. Anyone remember how to do this last year? Gigi, what do you recall? Yes. Yes. Our goal is to get this to be a fraction over 100. And I'll explain why in just a little bit. So we're using equivalent fractions here. How do we get from 5 to 100? What's our multiplier? Jillian?
20.
Yep, multiply by 20. And as you know with fractions, what you do to the top, you got to do to the bottom, or vice versa. If we multiply 5 by 20 to get to 100, we have to multiply 3 by 20 as well, and that's going to give us 60. Right? And the reason why we wanted to get this to something out of 100 is you could read this fraction 60 hundredths. Right? 60 hundredths. Remember, in decimals, there's a hundredths spot. 60 hundredths as a decimal would be no holes, because it is a proper fraction, it's less than 1. But then 60 hundredths, 0.60. If you have 60 pennies, 60 hundredths of a dollar, you've got 60 cents, right? That's what this says here. Okay? So the key to get from a decimal or a fraction to a decimal is to make that fraction over 100. You won't always be able to do that, right? If our fraction was 3/37, well, that's kind of awkward. We'll talk about that later on. But if you've got a number like 5, nice and friendly, multiply by 20, get to 100. Yeah, hey.
Why would you put 0.60 when you could just put 0.60?
Because, I mean, if you want to write 0.60, it means the same thing. But there is some talk earlier about, having no holes. I just want to make sure that it's very clear that there are 0 holes here. It's less than 1. But if you just want to put 0.60, that is totally fine. If you just want to write 0.6, that's fine too, right? Because remember, zeros at the end of a decimal don't have to be written, okay? And that would be an acceptable answer as well. Let's say we had, let's go with 9 25ths. Okay, 9/25 is our fraction. We want to write that as a decimal. Again, our goal is to get this denominator of 100. Right? That's what we want. How do we get from 25 to 100? Multiply by 4. And because it's a fraction, what you do to the bottom, you got to do the top. 9 times 4 is 36. And so now we have this fraction 36 hundredths, but the whole reason why we got this hundredths is because there's a place value of a hundredths, right? What would this 36 hundredths be in decimal form? Oh, I love all the hands up. Yeah. Olivia. 0.36. 36 hundredths. Okay? Doing all right? Questions? Good? Okay. The third option, decimal to a fraction. It says, write the decimal out to the hundredths place. Write the decimal as a numerator of a fraction with a denominator of 100. So again, we see this importance of having a denominator of 100. We're essentially going the exact opposite of what we did up at the top. Let's start this time with 0.36. Oh, hold on. Got a phone call here. See if I know how to pause this. Don't want to stop sharing. I want to pause. Again. Are we back? We're back. Okay. All right. So, got that. We gotta do this. Put that up there. And this. Here we go. So here's my secret. My microphone actually doesn't matter if I wear it or not. I just feel super important when I wear the microphone. And with a sweatshirt, there's nothing really great to clip it onto. I've done these ties before, but it gets all twisted. So really, I just wear it for show.
Really?
Yeah, I wear it for the effect.
Wow, why'd you tell us?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm an honest guy. Since you asked, nothing to hide. But anyway, so going backwards now, 0.36, it says write the decimal to hundredths place, which we have it here, okay? And then as a numerator of a fraction with a denominator of 100. You know, we can read that as 36 hundredths. 36 hundredths as a fraction, right, is 36 over 100. 36 hundredths. We've done it. Again, kind of like the exact opposite of what we did up here, right? That 36 hundredths. And then it says simplify if necessary. What can we divide both 36 and 100 by?
2.
Again, I'll give you a hint. It's the opposite. We could do 2, but more efficiently, Liv,
4.
divide by 4. Kind of how we got to 100 in the first place here, right? So if we divide by 4, both of them, we end up right back to where we started, which is 9/25. Okay? If you divided by 2 first, that's not wrong. You would get 18/50. And then hopefully you would recognize, oh, hey, they're still both even. I can divide by 2 again. And that would then bring you down to the 9/25 answer. Okay? But 4 gets you there directly. All right? Let's go 0.2. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 0.28. Okay? 0.28. We can read that as 28 hundredths, right? It's out to the hundredths place. Therefore, we can put that in fraction form as 28 hundredths, 28 over 100. Well, there's our fraction. What can we divide by? 8.
4.
We can divide by 4 again. That was nifty. Divide by 4, and we get 7/25 as an answer. Okay? So there you go. When we're going from a fraction to a decimal or decimal to a fraction, it's really all about that 100. Okay? Either getting your fraction to be something over 100, so then you can write it in decimal form to the hundredths place, or get your decimal to the hundredths place, putting it over 100, and then simplifying out. Right? All right, let's do some examples on the second page. Which one looks particularly daunting? It says convert integers to a fraction and decimal, decimals to a fraction, fractions to a decimal, and you do need to show your work. What do you want to go over together?
Go down and go to 5 1/10.
So 5 1/10. That one. -5 1/10. All right. So this is a fraction, which means that we're converting it to a decimal. And this one we have some holes here, right? -5 1/10 is a mixed number. So we know that our decimal is going to start with -5. Because that's how many holes we have. Okay? Really, we're focused on just this part here. 1/10. Do we have to go to 100 in this case? Why not?
Because the 10th bar.
Because it's 1/10. There's also a tenths place in a decimal, right? What place is the tenths place? How many spots after the decimal? 1. So if we have 1/10, -5 1/10, -5.1 would be the decimal, right? We don't care about the -5 so much, because again, that's how many holes we have. We're just looking at that 1/10 as 0.1. If you did convert 1/10 to a fraction over 100, because you just want to do the process, what would you multiply 10 by to get to 100? Multiply by 10. Right? Which means you do that up here as well. So you get 10 hundredths, which 10 hundredths 5.10 is the same as 5.1 anyway. Okay? Another. What else looks fun? You want to share your experience with the rest of the class. Aiden. Okay.
Well, yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah.
For the last one on the first page.
Oh, yeah. I kind of skipped over it, didn't I? What does it say? It says, you will not be using a calculator on this section of the test. Uh-oh. You can check your answer by calculating the fraction. 3/5 is the same as 3 divided by 5, and making sure the resulting decimal matches your decimal answer. What I mean by this is that I think we did 3/5 up at the top, and we decided that 3/5 was the same as 0.6. Right now, for your homework, if you wanted to check that in your calculator, because that fraction bar means division, if you take 3 divided by 5, you're going to get 3.6. So in the homework, the calculator could be a tool to help you check some of these answers. Okay. However, you will not be able to use a calculator on this part of the test because that would just make it way too simple. All right. So yeah. Thank you.
So like on other parts of the test, will you get to use the calculator?
Yeah. So I think on this test, I give you the first section separately. So you'll do that without a calculator, turn that in, and then I'll give you the second part that you can use a calculator on. I think that's how that works. But yeah. Okay. Others that you want to talk about? How about negative 1.45? Let's talk about that one. Okay. This is a decimal, so we want to convert it to a fraction. And so negative 1.45, is this out to the hundredths place?
Yes.
Yes. So we can write this as negative 1, because we do have a whole. Negative 1 and 45 hundredths. Right? Negative 1 whole, because that is in the ones place. Negative 1 and 45 hundredths. There's our fraction. Can we simplify that 45 hundredths?
Yes.
What can we divide by?
5.
Divide by 5. Let's do it. Is our whole going to change if we're simplifying the fraction part? No. So it's still going to be negative 1. And then 45 divided by 5, 20 divided by 5. That gives us 9/20. So negative 1 and 9/20 would be our answer. Matthew.
Should we do the negative 10 one?
Sure. Other questions on this one before we do that one? James?
Do you have to simplify every answer?
Fraction should always be in simplest form.
Alright.
Right? Did you ever have to ask Mrs. Gregory to end a sentence with a period or punctuation?
We had to ask her.
Yeah, we had to ask her.
Right.
So we had to use rates.
You had to ask her if you could end a sentence with punctuation?
No.
No.
We had to ask her if we needed to
You
use
got
rates.
knocked off.
Oh yeah, right.
that
So
makes
same thing here, right? This is like the punctuation of mathematics. Yeah, always simplify a fraction. Always simplify fraction. Okay, negative 10 was the request. Negative 10 is an integer, and the directions say to convert integers to both fractions and decimals. And so flip back to the integer section on the previous page if you're unsure. But how are we going to write this fraction? Gigi. Yep, negative 10 over 1. Right? Negative 10 wholes. Negative 10 divided by 1 is still negative 10. How about a decimal? Negative 10 wholes, how is that written in decimal form? Aiden.
0.10.
Well, that would mean we have no wholes.
Oh, 1.0.
Negative 1.0.
Negative 1.0 would mean that we have negative 1 wholes. We've got negative 10 wholes here.
What would it just be negative 10?
Negative 10.0, yes. Okay, negative 10.0.
We have to do both.
For the integers, yes. So 18, you have to do both. 6, you'll have to do both. I think there's only other 2 integers, but yeah. Yes, 18 and 6. I think ours are the other 2. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So negative 41/50ths. The fact that it's negative doesn't really change anything as far as the process to convert it to a decimal. We still want this with a denominator of 100. So the question still remains, how do we get from 50 to 100?
Times by 2.
Double it, right? Multiply by 2. Which means you have to double the 41 to get 82. So our fraction is 82 over 100. The fact that it's negative 41/50ths just means that our fraction is going to be negative 82 over 100. That's all. It doesn't really change the denominator of 100 or anything like that at all. Hey,
Could you do 0.34?
0.34. Sure. Let's give people a chance to jot this down first. What's your question on it first before we
Oh,
get there?
I don't know what to do for it.
So it's a decimal,
Yeah.
right? So if you think about what we've done with decimals in the past, flip back to that page before. What did we do when we start with a decimal? That's our goal, to convert to a fraction, right? And one way to read this, I think you said 0.34, right? Another way to read this is 34, what? 34 tenths, 34 hundredths, 34 hundredths, right? And you can write 34 hundredths as 34 over 100, right? 34 out of 100. This is like 34 cents as a price, which is 34 pennies, 34 hundredths of a dollar.
Wait, do we need to simplify that?
Of course you do. What would you divide by? Harrison?
Push more of the buttons.
Yes.
No. Okay. What would you divide by? For 34 hundredths to simplify this.
I had 3,400 times.
Oh, good. Okay. So what would you divide by? They're both even, right? So you know you can divide by 2. Maybe something else, but let's just start there. Anytime you have 2 even numbers, you can always start by divided by 2. Right? Always. So 34 divided by 2 is 17. Half of 100 is 50. Anything else going to both 17 and 50?
No.
So 17/50ths, final answer. Okay? And again, you can check this if you took your calculator and did 17 divided by 50, because that fraction bar means division. 17 divided by 50 will be precisely 0.34. Okay, I'm going to let you do the others on your own. This 2.09 is going to be similar to that negative 1.45 that we did, right? We have some holes here, but you kind of don't even pay attention to that. Okay, it's part of your final answer, but we really focus on that 0.45. 6, that's like the negative 10. The 18 is like the negative 10. 14/25, we did one like that on the first page. So you have some examples to look at if you need some help. The bottom section, kind of like a matching section here, it says match each fraction to its decimal value. So 3/10, which decimal over on the right side there represents 3/10? Nora? 0.3. So you'd simply draw a little line, right, from 3/10 to 0.3, and then so on and so forth. Okay? This is due tomorrow. You will have a homework check when you come in tomorrow, which means the homework check of 4 is still 100%. Okay? All the questions will be directly from this homework page. If you all come with your homework complete, what do we get to play? The number game, right? So make sure that you've got 10 minutes to work. Now we did several together, but make sure that you get this done for tomorrow. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, comments, congratulations, or criticisms on this?
That was boring.
Thank you for your honesty. Okay, do you remember the outro?
Yeah.
That's how you math.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.